3, 2, 1, you're being recorded.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I am sure most, if not all of you, know what a will is and have probably written yours. You know that there are laws that determine what and how you are to proceed in dividing your assets. But these laws deal with tangible items. They ignore the intangible assets you value in your life and hope that you have passed down to your children. There is a lovely Jewish custom, one that is unfortunately not sufficiently known in our time, of writing what is called an ethical will, which can also be called a legacy letter. Scholars might write a letter to a particular student or a group of students. Parents would write a letter to their children in which they would try to sum up all that they wanted to pass down to their children, all that they had learned in life, and in which they would try to express what they wanted most for and from their children. They would leave these letters behind because they believed that the wisdom they had acquired was just as much a part of the legacy they wanted to leave their children as were all the material possessions. The first ethical wills are found in the Bible. Jacob gathers his children around his bedside and tries to tell them the way in which they should live after he is gone. Moses makes a farewell address, chastising, prophesying, and instructing his people before he dies. David prepares Solomon before he dies by warning him of whom to be wary of when he becomes king, and by asking him to complete the task that David had begun and was unable to complete. The Talmud, medieval and modern Hebrew literature, all contain examples of ethical wills parents have left to their children. Medieval ethical wills contain the directions of fathers to their children or of aged teachers to their disciples. The early rabbis urged men to transmit the tradition's ethical teachings. Eliezer ben Samuel Halevi of Mainz, Germany, who died in 1357, instructed his sons to put me in the ground at the right hand of my father. Some of them were carefully composed and read as formal ethical treatises, but most were written in a personal writing style and were intended for the private use of children and relatives, or of some beloved pupil who held a special place in his teacher's regard. Because they were not designed for publication, they often revealed the writer's innermost feelings and ideals. The earliest existing ethical will was written by Eliezer, the son of Isaac of Worms, around 1050. Think not of evil, says Eliezer, for evil thinking leads to evil doing. Purify thy body, the dwelling place of thy soul. Give of all thy food a portion to God. Let God's portion be the best, and give it to the poor. The will of Judah ben Saul ibn Tibbon, about 1190, says, avoid bad society. Make thy books thy companions. Let thy bookcases and shelves be thy gardens and pleasure grounds. Pluck the fruit that grows therein. Gather the roses, the spices, and the myrrh. Asher, the son of Yechiel in the 14th century, called his will Ways of Life, and it includes 132 maxims, which are often printed in the prayer book. An example, do not obey the law for reward, nor avoid sin from fear of punishment, but serve God from love. The elaborate letter of advice by Solomon Alami, beginning of the 15th century, is composed in beautiful rhymed prose and is an important historical record. Alami shared the sufferings of the Jews of Spain and Portugal during the early days of the Inquisition in 1391, and this gives context to his counsel. Flee without hesitation when exile is the only means of securing religious freedom. Have no regard to your worldly career, or your property, but go at once. You wonder if any of the Jews of Europe in the 30s read this. So, an ethical will is a way to share your values, blessings, love, and forgiveness, to share life's lessons as well as your hopes and dreams for the future. It is not a legal document intended for the distribution of your material goods, but it is a heartfelt expression of what truly matters most in your life. You do not have to wait until the end of your life to begin writing an ethical will. Today, ethical wills are being written by people at turning points and transitions in their lives, and when facing challenging life situations. For example, many people wrote them after 9/11, when the fragility of our lives was brought home to them so horribly. These documents are often shared with family and community while the writer is still alive. An ethical will may be one of the most cherished and meaningful gifts you can leave to your family and community. It reflects the voice of the heart. Every ethical will is as unique as the person writing it. Think of it as a love letter to your family. What would you write in your will? Here is a partial list of common themes seen in modern ethical wills. Important personal values and beliefs. Important spiritual values. Hopes and blessings for future generations. Life's lessons. Love. Forgiving others and asking for forgiveness. Here are some guidelines. Start today. If you are not here tomorrow, what is the most important thing you would not want left unsaid? It might be as simple as saying thank you in your own words. Write it down, and you've begun. Relax and be yourself. You're not trying to write for the Pulitzer Prize. What you create is a gift of yourself, made for those you love, not for an imaginary panel passing judgment on your life or your writing. Ask yourself, what do I want to make sure my loved ones know and have in writing? What messages, feelings, and information do I want to endure beyond my life? Consider it a work in progress. Start small and add to it over time if you wish. It's natural to expect that what seems most important to share might grow and change as you and your audience age. Be careful. Be loving. The reach of your words is unknowable. Make it easy to find. Keep it in an accessible file so you can add to it effortlessly. Keep it with your legal papers or refer to where it can be found. Make sure your words find their intended audience. Consider sharing it during your lifetime. You may augment or change your document over time. Think of the rewards of creating a monologue that will promote dialogue. An ethical will is not an easy thing to write. In doing so, one confronts oneself. One must look inward to see what are the essential truths one has learned in a lifetime, face up to one's failures, and consider what are the things that really count. An individual learns a great deal about himself or herself when writing an ethical will. If you had time to write just one letter, to whom would it be addressed? What would it say? What would you leave out? Would you chastise and rebuke? Would you thank, forgive, or seek to instruct? An ethical will is not an easy thing to read. There is a sense of being a voyeur, of eavesdropping on an intimate conversation, of reading a love letter from the beyond. Those who read these documents should do so with reverence and with gratitude. We tread carefully here, and we read with a sense of privilege. Susan Turnbull, who is the founder and principal of an organization called Personal Legacy Advisors, says, "The ethical will is written to help other people for the benefit of the heirs, but the process the author goes through to create it is as valuable as the document itself. The author has the opportunity to pause and reflect on his or her life in ways he or she might otherwise never do. There are a number of books on this subject that you can find online. I have chosen two authors whose books might help you in your journey. Both are available online. Ethical Wills, A Modern Treasury, edited by Jack Reimer and Nathaniel Stamfer. Jack Reimer has also written some verses and prayers that are in some of the Sidurim, the prayer books that we use. Your Legacy Matters by Rachel Freed. One of the values I hope you will include in your ethical will is your care and concern for our Jewish community. You can learn of another way that you can address this concern through people like Jack, who can explain more about what they're doing. So thank you for listening.